In this lesson, we will learn how to shade end particles. Now this is going to be a really exciting lesson because we'll start to see our particles resemble something more along the lines of what we're aiming for, which is steam, right? Let's say we get started, we'll hit play so we can see our particles, really important if we're trying to shade them. Alright, from there we can go ahead and grab the particle object, and let's go ahead and scroll down until we find our shading property. Here it is. Alright, so once we expand that, take a look at how many neat settings we can access. So we can go to our particle render type and switch that from here. Take a look, we're working with clouds by default using the thick cloud particle type. But we can switch this to, let's say, multi-point or perhaps sprites if you'd like to plug in your own texture. In this case, of course, we want to work with clouds. Now you can see how the material changes, no worries. We'll just go ahead and jump back from the beginning and hit play to update that. Nice. We could also adjust the global opacity of our particles from here using the opacity parameter. And then there's an opacity scale. We have an idea of what this does because we've already worked with our radius scale, right? So it's kind of the same thing, only for the opacity of our particles. So let's say if we wanted to have them start a little bit more transparent, we can bring this start point down. And then what we can do is take our end point and bring that up so that they are more opaque towards the end of their life. How cool is that? Fantastic. And then we can adjust our opacity scale input. For example, we could set this to, let's say, normalized age, which looks at our lifespan value to determine how our opacity should affect our particle objects, how we should transition. So it essentially takes, again, our lifespan, and it says, all right, according to our graph, we're going to have this really nice blend from our start point to the end point according to the lifespan that Maya outputs. All right, really neat. So that's going to work out great. Something else I'd like to point out to you is the texture that we can start to modify on the particle object. So we could actually adjust the texture of our opacity. How do we do that? Well, with it selected, we'll go ahead and right-click and choose Material Attributes. Fantastic. So take a look. From here, we can get to the actual blend of the particle object that's created every time we create an end particle. If we were to head over to our Hypershade, we can have a closer look at these materials. I'll go to Window Rendering Editors and grab the Hypershade. From there, take a look. So here is the blend object, and then we also have a fluid object. Now this is what we want to modify. Let's go ahead and select the fluid material. With that selected, now we can go ahead and move to the textures drop down. Here it is. Let's go and expand that again. All right, sweet. So take a look. We can start to adjust the texture on our opacity to create something that resembles steam. So this would be a good time to maybe start a render, and then we will change a few properties to take a look at how this will all affect the look of our particles. All right, so let's say we go ahead and do that. I'll start a render. Let me go ahead and pause the video. When it finishes, I'll come back. Here's the render. So that looks cool. Let's say we go ahead and save this image. All right, fantastic. And now let's go ahead and change our opacity to, let's say, something that's a little bit more wispier. We'd expect that from steam, right? So we'll go ahead and go to our texture type dropdown. Let's go ahead and choose wispy. All right, sweet. I think this would be a good time to do another render. So let's go ahead and start that. And again, I'll pause the video. Great, so you can see with the wispy texture type, we get something that resembles steam. Let's go ahead and take a look at the before image to have an idea of the changes that were made. So you can see here using the first option without wispy, which was Perlin noise. So with this option here, you can see that things look a little bit more blobbier, right? Or more cloud-like. Whereas with wispy, well, now we start to get something that looks a little bit more like steam. And keep in mind there are other properties we can modify to get a better look. Now, before we start to change those properties, let's go ahead and do this. It'd be a great idea to see how this looks from our shot camera, because that's what counts, right? That's what the audience will see. So let's go ahead and switch to our shot camera. Sweet. I'll go ahead and start back the animation. And we'll wait until we can start to see our mech. Alright, fantastic. So I'm on about frame 102. I think this would be a great moment to create another render. So I'll pause the video and do that. Have a look. How exciting is that? So this is starting to look more natural. Fantastic. I think that there are a few other parameters we can modify. So what we can do is go ahead and work on a render region where we'd like to kind of test out a few properties that we can start to edit, maybe increasing our texture gain, which will create something a little bit more transparent. We could also start to modify our amplitude, maybe dropping that a bit more so it's not as extreme. And then we can go ahead and do another render, but this time in just this region here, just to kind of see how that changes things. So now the particle isn't as intense, so that might work out really well. Fantastic. We could also drop the radius of our end particles just a little bit more. Let's say we can go ahead and, let's say, jump back to the particle object. Let's go ahead and select it. Move up to the top until we find our radius scale parameter. Let's go ahead and take this endpoint and bring that down just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And then we'll go ahead and create another render. So again, I will pause the video. Here's our result. Fantastic stuff. So you can see how this can start to create more realism in our particles by simply going in and adjusting the texture on our opacity. We have a lot of control. There are a lot of properties that Maya gives us in order to create the look that we would like, which is super exciting stuff. Alright, sweet. So I just wanted to point out all of the exciting parameters that we can start to edit to create something that we can be really pleased with in our particles. So with that, that's going to finish this lesson. In the next lesson, what we're going to do is learn how to animate our particles so that they appear and then disappear at the right time.